Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions: the mystery of Tenochtitlan, the impossible city under Mexico City. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction, not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. When Spanish conquistadors first saw it in 1519, they could not believe their eyes. Hernán Cortés wrote to his king that it was the most beautiful city in the world, more wondrous than anything in Spain. His soldiers, veterans of campaigns across Europe and the Caribbean, stood on the causeway approaching the city and argued among themselves about whether what they were seeing was a dream. Tenochtitlan, the capital of the Aztec Empire, was built on an island in the middle of a lake, connected to the mainland by three great causeways, its population of 200,000 making it one of the 5 largest cities on Earth at the time. Within 2 years, it was rubble. And on those ruins, the Spanish built Mexico City, which means that beneath one of the most densely populated urban areas in the modern world lies the almost perfectly preserved remains of one of the most extraordinary cities ever built. Every construction project in the Mexican capital is a potential archaeological site, and what keeps emerging from beneath the streets has been rewriting our understanding of Aztec civilization for decades. This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the broader phenomenon of lost civilizations, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. For as long as human beings have told stories, they have told stories about what was lost. Every great culture on Earth carries myths of a golden age, a time before the current order, when civilization stood taller, knew more, and reached further than anything that came after. For centuries, scholars categorized these stories as allegory, comforting fictions invented by cultures to explain the gap between their aspirations and their achievements. But a quiet revolution in archaeology, geology, and oceanography has changed that calculus. The evidence now accumulating from seafloors, ice cores, and ancient texts is demanding a fundamental revision of the human story, one in which the line between myth and memory is far thinner than we imagined. The conventional timeline of civilization holds that complex urban society first emerged in Mesopotamia around 3500 BC. Before that, scattered farming villages, nomadic hunter-gatherers, and nothing more. But this tidy narrative has been challenged repeatedly by anomalous discoveries that do not fit the accepted sequence. Megalithic structures dated to 10,000 BC or earlier. Astronomical alignments encoded in monuments by cultures supposedly too primitive to understand the sky. Mathematical ratios embedded in architecture that would not be formally derived for thousands of years. These discoveries are not fringe fabrications. They are measured, published, and debated in peer-reviewed literature. They point toward a past far more complex than the textbooks describe. What happens when a civilization falls? Most of its knowledge disappears. The libraries burn, the engineers die, the farmers abandon the fields. Within a generation or two, the grandchildren of architects are living in the ruins of buildings they cannot build. We know this happened in the Bronze Age collapse of 1200 BC, when a networked civilization spanning the Mediterranean was destroyed in a matter of decades. We know it from the fall of Rome. History is not a steady march of progress. It is punctuated by catastrophic resets, after which humanity must begin again. The question is whether some of those resets happened far earlier than we know, and whether their traces are still waiting to be found beneath our feet. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades, and patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter, the core evidence surrounding Tenochtitlan. The impassable city under Mexico City is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. Tenochtitlan was founded in 1325 AD on a small island in Lake Texcoco and expanded over 2 centuries by constructing chinepas, artificial floating gardens built by piling up lake mud on reed mats anchored to the lake floor. This hydraulic engineering technique created both additional agricultural land and the urban footprint of a city that eventually covered more than 13 square kilometers. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered, at its peak, Tenochtitlan's population of 200,000 to 300,000 made it comparable in size to contemporary Constantinople and significantly larger than any city in Western Europe, where London had roughly 50,000 inhabitants at the time. The city's fresh water was supplied by 2 massive aqueducts, its waste removed by a canoe-based sanitation system, and its markets served tens of thousands of traders daily. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine the Templo Mayor, the twin pyramid that stood at the city's ceremonial center, has been excavated since its rediscovery in 1978, revealing more than 7,000 ritual offerings deposited over 2 centuries of construction. These offerings include marine shells from both coasts, crocodile remains, jade figurines, human skulls, and the remains of sacrificed children, providing an extraordinary window into Aztec religious practice. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation. But the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, in 2020, archaeologists excavating near the ruins of the Templo Mayor discovered a massive circular altar bearing 119 human skulls and a cylindrical tower made of human skulls more than 5 meters in diameter. Historical accounts had described such a structure, the Huey-Tzompantli, but its physical discovery confirmed the scale of ritual sacrifice at the city's core. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of the Aztec hydraulic engineering system that supported Tenochtitlan included a 16-kilometer dike built by Nezahualcóyotl of Texcoco to protect the city's freshwater supply from saline lake water, multiple floodgates, and a complex system of canals serving as the city's streets. Contemporary observers reported that tens of thousands of workers maintained this infrastructure daily. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding. The Spanish conquest of Tenochtitlan in 1521 deliberately demolished the city's buildings to provide materials for the colonial capital. The lake was subsequently drained over centuries, eliminating the water-based infrastructure entirely. Mexico City now sits on the former lake bed, and the gradual sinking caused by groundwater extraction, up to 30 centimeters per year in some areas, is simultaneously damaging modern infrastructure and exposing ancient remains. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological errors. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations, and in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain Tenochtitlan, the impossible city under Mexico City. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that Tenochtitlan's extraordinary growth was driven not merely by military conquest, but by a sophisticated system of political alliance and economic integration that made the city a commercial hub for a region of millions. The Triple Alliance between Tenochtitlan, Texcoco, and Tlacopan was less an empire in the European sense and more a confederation of city-states connected by tribute, trade, and marriage politics. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that the Aztec practice of large-scale human sacrifice, often framed purely as religious horror by European sources, served a complex political function. The public display of sacrificed war captives communicated the military power of the state, deterred rebellion, and reinforced the social hierarchy. This does not make it less brutal, but it makes it comprehensible within the political logic of a conquest state. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that Tenochtitlan's rapid decline after 1521 was accelerated by smallpox, which killed an estimated 30 to 50% of the population in the years immediately before and during the Spanish conquest. A weakened, disease-ravaged city was far easier to conquer than the military statistics alone suggest, and Cortés's famous victory was as much an epidemiological catastrophe as a military one. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding Tenochtitlan, the impassable city under Mexico City, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes the Templo Mayor excavations since 1978 have recovered more than 7,000 ritual objects across 8 construction phases, including a 125-meter diameter stone disc depicting the dismembered moon goddess Coyolxauhqui, now one of the most important artifacts in Mexican archaeology. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented recently excavated wooden piles and architectural remains of Aztec buildings beneath the Mexico City Historic Center, preserved by waterlogged conditions, confirm the precise location and orientation of multiple major structures described in Spanish colonial records and indigenous pictorial manuscripts. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed the Huey-Tzompantli Skull Tower, excavated between 2015 and 2020, contained skulls from men, women, and children, contradicting the conventional assumption that sacrifice victims were exclusively male war captives, and suggesting a broader ritual practice than previously understood. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding Tenochtitlan, the impassable city under Mexico City. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. Mexico City's infrastructure projects are now conducted under archaeological supervision by law, and the Mexico City metro construction has produced some of the most significant Aztec discoveries of the past 50 years. The ongoing excavation of the Great Temple Complex continues to produce extraordinary finds, but the preservation challenge is enormous. The city above is sinking while the ruins below are being unearthed. Tenochtitlan is both the most extensively excavated and the most threatened major ancient site in the Americas. What we are uncovering is one of the world's great civilizational achievements, built, destroyed, buried, and slowly recovered beneath one of the world's great modern cities. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of Tenochtitlan, the impossible city under Mexico City, from the historical record, through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Tenochtitlan ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.